The great hall was silent. Commander Zekthara stood before the judges, her forearms shaking slightly. She had fought in many battles, but this moment scared her more than any war. The alien tribunal waited for her to speak about the humans. Zekthara looked at her scarred hands. 3 fingers were missing from her left hand. A human weapon had done that. The burns on her face still hurt when she thought about Earth soldiers. She had come here to tell the truth about what humans really were. I commanded the 5th Battle Group of the Hegemony Defense Corps, she began. Her voice was quiet, but clear. We were the best fighters in our military. We had won every battle for 20 years. Then we met the humans. The judges leaned forward. They had heard stories about humans, but Zekthara had actually fought them. She had seen what they could do. It started on Kepler 442, she continued. A small planet with good farming land. Our leaders wanted to add it to our territory. Intelligence reports said only a few hundred humans lived there. We thought it would be easy. Zekthara remembered that day clearly. Her ships had approached the planet with confidence. They had 3,000 elite soldiers, plasma cannons, and orbital support. The humans had maybe 30 soldiers and basics. Weapons. Lieutenant Jake Murphy led the human forces, she said. I learned his name later when I studied their tactics. He was young, maybe 25 in human years. He looked weak compared to our warriors. The first battle had seemed normal. Zekthara's forces landed at dawn and moved toward the main human settlement. They expected the humans to surrender when they saw how outnumbered they were. That did not happen. The humans did not run, Zekthara told the tribunal. When we appeared, they smiled. They actually smiled at us. I thought they were crazy or too stupid to understand the danger. Jake Murphy had walked out to meet them. He carried only a small weapon and wore basic armor. Behind him, his soldiers spread out in what looked like a hopeless defensive position. Murphy called out to us, Zekthara continued. He said we could leave now and no one would get hurt. My soldiers laughed, I laughed too. One human telling 3,000 hegemony warriors to leave seemed like a joke. But Jake Murphy was not joking. He raised his weapon and fired one shot into the air. That was the signal his soldiers had been waiting for. The ground under Zekthara's forces exploded. The humans had spent weeks digging tunnels and planting bombs. Half her front line disappeared in fire and smoke. But that was just the beginning. They had turned their entire settlement into a trap, she explained. Every building, every street, every piece of cover we might use had been prepared to kill us. But worse than the bombs were the soldiers themselves. The human fighters moved, like nothing Zekthara had ever seen. They appeared from nowhere, killed several of her soldiers, then vanished before her forces could respond. They knew exactly where to strike to cause the most damage. Sergeant Lisa Carter had been Murphy's second in command. Zekthara would never forget her face. Carter was small even for a human, but she fought like a demon. She had personally killed 12 hegemony soldiers in the first hour of battle. Carter used our size against us, Zekthara said. We are larger and stronger than humans, but that made us slower. She would hide in places too small for us to follow, then attack when we passed by. The humans also used weapons that Zekthara's people had never seen before. They threw small bombs that stuck to armor and exploded. They fired bullets that could punch through the strongest hegemony shields. Worst of all, they used their knowledge of alien biology against them. They knew our weak spots, she continued. Somehow they knew exactly where to hit us to cause the most pain and damage. Our intelligence files on human anatomy were complete, but their knowledge of us was perfect. As the battle continued, Zekthara realized something terrible. The humans were not just fighting to win. They were fighting to send a message. Every attack was designed to terrorize as much as kill. Jake Murphy appeared on her communication screen during the battle. His face was covered in blood, but he was still smiling. Commander, he had said, you should have taken my offer. Now we have to do this the hard way. The hard way meant that the humans stopped trying to minimize casualties. They began using tactics that Zekthara's military training said were impossible. They sacrificed themselves to kill single enemies. They destroyed their own buildings to trap hegemony soldiers inside. One human soldier ran straight at our heavy weapons team. Zekthara told the tribunal. He was carrying explosives. He knew he would die, but he also knew he would take 20 of our soldiers with him. He never hesitated. The battle lasted 3 days. By the end, Zekthara had lost over half her forces. The humans still controlled their settlement. Worse, they had captured many of her soldiers and vehicles. But the real shock came when Jake Murphy contacted her again. He offered to return her captured soldiers in exchange for her complete withdrawal from the planet. He also wanted all her military intelligence files on human settlements. I had no choice, Zekthara said. My soldiers were trapped, and the humans had proven they could kill us easily. But Murphy's terms were not normal prisoner exchange. He wanted information that would help humans fight other alien forces. When the exchange happened, Zekthara saw her soldiers again. They were alive but changed. The humans had not tortured them physically, but they had done something worse. They had studied them. My soldiers told me the humans had asked them thousands of questions, she explained. Questions about our tactics, our technology, our fears. The humans were learning how to fight us better. Jake Murphy had shaken her hand when the exchange was complete. His grip was strong, but what scared her was his eyes. They showed no anger or hatred. They showed calculation. He was already planning for the next battle. That was when I realized the truth, Zekthara said to the silent tribunal. The humans had not been defending their settlement. They had been conducting an experiment. They had used our attack to test their weapons and tactics against live alien targets. The Battle of Kepler 442 was supposed to be a simple occupation. Instead, it became the first lesson in what humans really were. They were not just another species that had learned to fight. They were a species that had turned fighting into a science. Zekthara looked at the judges. That was only the beginning, she said. What I learned about humans in later battles was much worse. Commander Zekthara took a deep breath before continuing her testimony. The judges waited patiently as she gathered her thoughts. What she was about to tell them would be harder to believe than her first story. After Kepler 442, I thought I understood humans, she said. I was wrong. The High Command gave me a new mission 6 months later. They wanted me to capture a human research station in the Vega system. The research station was supposed to be lightly defended. Intelligence reports showed only 50 human scientists and maybe 20 guards. Zekthara brought 2,000 soldiers this time. She was not going to underestimate humans again. We approached the station carefully, she continued. I expected traps like before. But the humans did something different. They sent us a message asking for a meeting. The message came from Dr. Karen Bell, the station commander. She was a middle-aged woman who looked harmless. Bell said she wanted to discuss surrender terms before any fighting started. Zekthara agreed to meet. She brought 50 guards and met Bell on a small asteroid between their forces. Bell came alone. She carried no weapons and wore a simple white coat. Dr. Bell seemed nervous, Zekthara told the tribunal. She kept apologizing for the trouble we were having. She said the humans did not want to fight. She offered to surrender the station immediately. But Bell had conditions. She wanted safe passage for her research team. She also wanted to give Zekthara some information that might interest the hegemony military. Bell said her team had been studying alien biology, Zekthara explained. She claimed they had made discoveries that could help both sides avoid future conflicts. She offered to share this research as part of the surrender. Zekthara was suspicious, but the offer seemed genuine. Bell showed her data files about different alien species. The research looked legitimate and potentially valuable. I made a mistake, Zekthara admitted. I accepted Bell's offer. I allowed her research team to board my flagship to present their findings to my science officers. The human researchers arrived 12 hours later. They brought computers, data files, and what they claimed were medical samples. Dr. Bell introduced her team members one by one. They all seemed like normal scientists. But something was wrong. Zekthara's soldiers began acting strangely within hours of the humans coming aboard. They became paranoid and aggressive. Some reported hearing voices. Others could not sleep. First I thought it was battle stress, she said. My soldiers had been fighting humans for months, but the symptoms were too specific and appeared too quickly. Dr. Bell's team was studying the hegemony soldiers. They took blood samples and brain scans, claiming it was for their research into alien biology. But they were actually mapping how hegemony minds worked. The humans had discovered that her species used pheromone signals to communicate emotions and battle coordination. They had brought devices that could detect and analyze these chemical messages. Bell's team was recording our pheromone patterns, Zekthara explained. They learned how we signaled fear, anger, and retreat. Then they began broadcasting artificial signals. The fake pheromone signals confused Zekthara's soldiers. They received chemical messages telling them to panic, even when no danger was present. Their natural communication system had been turned against them, but the psychological attack was more sophisticated than simple confusion. The humans had studied hegemony, religion, and culture. They knew which symbols and concepts were sacred to her people. During the night shift, my soldiers found their prayer rooms had been vandalized. Zekthara continued. Sacred symbols were destroyed or changed. Religious texts were rewritten with human words mixed in. The desecration was not random. The humans had carefully chosen which religious elements to target for maximum psychological impact. They knew that attacking hegemony faith would break morale more effectively than any weapon. Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone was Bell's military advisor. He had been quiet during the initial meeting, but now he revealed his true purpose. Stone was a psychological warfare specialist. Stone explained to me that humans study the minds of their enemies, Zekthara said. They do not just want to defeat alien forces. They want to break the will to fight completely. Stone showed her human military manuals about alien psychology. The humans had detailed profiles of dozens of species. They knew the fears, weaknesses, and cultural pressure points of every major alien civilization. The humans had been preparing for galactic war for decades, she told the tribunal. They studied us before we even knew they existed. Every first contact with aliens was actually an intelligence-gathering operation. The research station had been a trap from the beginning. Dr. Bell was not a scientist. She was a military intelligence officer. Her entire team consisted of specialists in alien psychology and biological warfare. The humans had chosen the Vega system because it was far from major alien settlements. If their experiments went wrong, no one would know what happened. They had been testing psychological weapons on captured alien subjects for years. Bell showed me the other test subjects, Zekthara said quietly. Prisoners from different species, all being studied to find their breaking points. The humans called it behavioral analysis for tactical applications. The worst part was how systematic the human approach was. They did not torture prisoners for information or revenge. They studied alien minds like scientists studying insects. They were building a database of how to destroy the morale of any species they might fight. Captain Tony Garcia commanded the human military forces at the station. He was different from Jake Murphy. Where Murphy had been passionate and aggressive, Garcia was cold and calculating. Garcia told me that humans always assume their enemies will use the worst possible tactics, Zekthara explained. So they prepare countermeasures that go beyond what other species consider acceptable warfare. Garcia showed her human military doctrine about escalation dominance. The idea was that humans should always be prepared to fight more brutally than their enemies. If aliens used conventional weapons, humans would use psychological warfare. If aliens used psychological warfare, humans would use biological weapons. The humans were not just fighting to win battles, Zekthara said. They were fighting to make sure no alien species would ever want to fight them again. They wanted to become too terrifying to challenge. When Zekthara finally escaped the research station, she had lost most of her sanity along with her soldiers. The humans had demonstrated that they could turn alien biology, psychology, and culture into weapons. That was when I realized the truth about humans, she concluded. They are not warriors. They are predators who have learned to hunt entire civilizations. Commander Zekthara paused for a long moment. Her 4 hands trembled as she reached for a datapad. The judges could see that what she was about to reveal was the most difficult part of her testimony. The third encounter changed everything. she began. It showed me that humans had been planning galactic war long before any alien species knew Earth existed. 6 months after the research station incident, Zekthara received orders to investigate human activity in the Outer Rim systems. Reports suggested humans were building secret military bases far from their official territory. I commanded a fleet of 12 ships with 5,000 soldiers, she said. We were hunting what we thought was a small human outpost. Instead, we found something much worse. The human base was hidden inside a dead star system. No planets existed there, only asteroids and cosmic debris. It should have been empty space, but human technology had built a massive facility in the darkness. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded the base. She was younger than the other human officers Zekthara had met, but her eyes were older. Rodriguez had the look of someone who had seen too much war. Rodriguez did not try to hide from us, Zekthara told the tribunal. When we arrived, she contacted us immediately. She invited me to visit her base and see what humans were really doing. The invitation was a trap, but not the kind Zekthara expected. Rodriguez wanted to show her something that would break her completely. The human captain wanted to demonstrate the true scope of human preparation for galactic conflict. The base was enormous, Zekthara continued. Kilometers of tunnels and chambers built into asteroids. Thousands of humans worked there, but they were not soldiers. They were scientists, analysts, and researchers. Rodriguez gave Zekthara a tour of the facility. The first section contained databases with information about every known alien species in the galaxy. The humans had detailed files on biology, psychology, culture, and military tactics. They knew more about my people than we knew about ourselves, she said. They had studied our history going back thousands of years. They knew our legends, our fears, our weaknesses that we had forgotten. But the databases were only the beginning. Rodriguez showed her laboratories where humans were developing weapons specifically designed to kill different alien species. Each weapon was tailored to exploit the unique vulnerabilities of its target. Dr. Matt Clark ran the Biological Weapons Division. He was a quiet man who spoke about killing aliens the way a farmer might discuss crops. Clark showed Zekthara diseases that could affect only hegemony physiology. Clark explained that humans had been collecting alien genetic material for decades, she said. Every diplomatic contact, every trade mission, every peaceful meeting was also an opportunity to gather biological samples. The humans had developed viruses that could target specific alien DNA. They could create plagues that would kill one species while leaving others completely unharmed. They could eliminate entire civilizations without damaging planets or resources. But biological weapons were not their worst creation, Zekthara continued. Captain Rodriguez showed me the psychological warfare section. Colonel Nancy White commanded the Psychological Operations Division. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her work was the most terrifying thing Zekthara had ever seen. White had mapped the psychology of 43 different alien species, she explained. She knew exactly how to break the minds of any aliens humans might fight. White's team had developed specific psychological weapons for each species. For the religious hegemony, they created false prophecies and corrupted sacred texts. For the honor-bound Kethmari, they designed scenarios that would force impossible moral choices. White showed me recordings of test subjects, Zekthara said quietly. Aliens from different species being exposed to psychological weapons. I watched beings lose their sanity in minutes. The humans had not just studied alien minds, they had learned how to reprogram them. They could turn loyal soldiers into traitors, make warriors afraid to fight, and convince entire populations that resistance was hopeless. But the most shocking discovery was in the planning section. General Pete Morris commanded strategic operations. He showed Zekthara the human plan for conquering the galaxy. The humans had already decided which species would be enslaved and which would be eliminated, she told the tribunal. They had maps showing how they would divide conquered alien territories. Morris explained that humans viewed galactic expansion as inevitable. They believed that eventually all species would come into conflict over resources. The humans wanted to make sure they won that conflict before it began. Morris said humans learned from their own history. Zekthara continued. They knew that Civilizations either expand or die. They chose expansion. The human plan was not just about conquest. It was about permanent dominance. They intended to break alien civilizations so completely that rebellion would be impossible for generations. They planned to destroy our cultures, our religions, our sense of identity, she said. They wanted to turn us into workers who served human interests without question. Rodriguez showed her the final section of the base. It contained detailed plans for governing conquered alien populations. The humans had studied every successful occupation in their own history and developed improved methods. They planned to use our own leaders against us, Zekthara explained. They would corrupt alien governments from within, turning our rulers into human puppets. The humans understood that physical occupation was expensive and difficult. Instead, they would control alien minds and let aliens police themselves. They would make slavery seem like freedom. Captain Rodriguez told me something that still haunts me, Zekthara said. She said humans had been preparing for this war since they first looked at the stars. Every human child learned about alien species in school, but they learned about us as future enemies. The human education system was designed to create soldiers and conquerors. Human children played games that taught them how to fight aliens. Their entertainment showed humans defeating alien enemies. Their entire culture was preparation for galactic war. Rodriguez offered to let me return to my people with a message, Zekthara continued. She wanted me to tell the hegemony that surrender was the only option. She said humans would be merciful to species that submitted without fighting. But mercy was not really mercy. Rodriguez showed her plans for peaceful integration of alien civilizations. It meant slow extinction through cultural destruction and genetic manipulation. I realized then that humans were not just another species, Zekthara concluded. They were a plague designed to consume the galaxy. Every contact with them made us weaker while making them stronger. The tribunal sat in stunned silence as Zekthara finished describing the secret base. They were beginning to understand that humanity represented a threat unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. Commander Zekthara looked directly at each judge as she prepared to give her final testimony. Her voice was steady now, but her eyes showed the pain of someone who had seen the end of everything she believed in. The last battle proved that everything I told you was true, she began. It happened in the Vega system where humans showed the galaxy what they really were. The final confrontation came when the Galactic Alliance decided to stop human expansion once and for all. 12 different alien species joined together to fight humanity. They brought the largest fleet in galactic history to end the human threat. We had 50,000 ships and 10 million soldiers, Zekthara said. The humans had maybe 5,000 ships. We thought numbers would finally matter. General Chris Walker commanded the human forces. He was different from the other human officers Zekthara had encountered. Walker was older, calmer, and seemed almost sad about what he had to do. The battle began normally. Both fleets moved into position and prepared for conventional warfare. The aliens expected a difficult fight, but they were confident that superior numbers would bring victory. Then General Walker did something that changed everything. Zekthara continued. He broadcast a message to every ship in our fleet. The message was not meant for our commanders. It was meant for our soldiers. The broadcast contained specific sound frequencies that affected alien brain chemistry. The humans had learned exactly which sounds could trigger panic responses in different species. The message was designed to cause instant terror. Within minutes, half our fleet was in chaos, she explained. Soldiers abandoned their posts. Pilots lost control of their ships. Some aliens went completely insane from fear. But the sound weapon was only the beginning. Walker had prepared multiple attacks that targeted the psychology of each alien species in the Alliance fleet. Major Linda Ross commanded the Human Psychological Warfare Division during the battle. She coordinated attacks that hit every alien weakness simultaneously. The humans turned the Alliance's diversity against itself. Ross broadcast different messages to each species, Zekthara said. To the hegemony, she sent fake religious prophecies, saying we were cursed. To the Kethmari, she sent evidence that their allies had betrayed them. The psychological attacks were perfectly timed and coordinated. As alien crews struggled with terror and confusion, human ships moved in for physical attacks. The humans did not just want to win the battle. They wanted to destroy alien confidence forever. Captain Joe Parker led the human boarding parties. His soldiers did not just capture alien ships. They performed specific actions designed to maximize psychological trauma for each species. Parker's men knew exactly how to terrorize us, Zekathara continued. They destroyed religious symbols sacred to each species. They forced alien officers to watch recordings of their homeworlds being attacked. The boarding parties also collected alien prisoners for later study. The humans were still learning about alien psychology even during the battle. Every encounter gave them more data for future conflicts. But the worst moment came when General Walker offered to end the battle, Zekathara said. He contacted our fleet commander and proposed immediate surrender terms. The terms seemed reasonable at first. Walker offered to spare alien lives in exchange for the Alliance fleet withdrawing from human space. He promised that humans would not pursue retreating alien forces. Fleet Commander Veltar of the Kethmari accepted the terms. He ordered all Alliance ships to withdraw immediately. The aliens thought they were saving lives and avoiding total defeat. We were wrong, Zekathara said quietly. Walker's offer was another psychological weapon. He wanted us to retreat so we would spread fear throughout the galaxy. The retreating alien fleet carried more than defeated soldiers. They carried the knowledge that humans could defeat any force through psychological warfare alone. The story of the Vega battle would terrorize alien civilizations for generations. But Walker was not finished. As the alien fleet withdrew, he broadcast one final message. This time he spoke directly to the alien commanders. Walker explained the human concept of total war, Zekathara told the tribunal. He said humans always prepare for conflicts far more brutal than the current one. Every human military plan assumes the enemy will use the worst possible tactics. Walker revealed that the Vega battle was actually a demonstration. The humans could have destroyed the entire alien fleet, but they chose to let most ships escape. They wanted survivors to carry a message back to their homeworlds. The message was simple, she continued. Humans were prepared to fight wars that other species could not imagine. Any alien civilization that opposed humanity would face complete destruction. Colonel Dan Brown was Walker's intelligence officer. He showed Zekathara classified human military doctrines that went far beyond anything used in the battle. Brown explained that humans plan for wars against entire civilizations, she said. They have strategies for destroying alien cultures, religions, and genetic diversity. They can eliminate species without leaving any trace they ever existed. The humans had developed weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. They could poison planets so thoroughly that nothing would grow for thousands of years. They could rewrite alien DNA to make species extinct through their own reproduction. Brown told me that human children learn about these weapons in school, Zekathara said. Human education prepares every child to be a soldier in galactic war. Their entire civilization exists to create better ways of defeating aliens. The final revelation came when Walker himself spoke to Zekathara privately. He explained why humans fought the way they did. Walker said humans learned from their own history that peaceful species always lose to aggressive ones, she continued. So they chose to become the most aggressive species in the galaxy. Walker revealed that humans had studied the rise and fall of civilizations throughout galactic history. They learned that species survived by being more ruthless than their enemies. Humans decided to be more ruthless than anyone. He told me that humans do not hate aliens, Zekathara said. They simply believe that only one species can dominate the galaxy. They chose to make sure that species was humanity. Walker's final words haunted Zekathara for months afterward. He had said that humans would prefer to live in peace, but they knew peace was impossible, so they prepared for permanent war. The humans are not evil, she concluded. They are something worse. They are logical. Everything they do makes sense if you believe that survival requires total dominance. Zekathara looked at the judges one last time. I have told you the truth about humans. They are not just another species. They are the end of everything else. The only question now is whether the galaxy surrenders to them or dies fighting them. The tribunal chamber fell silent as Zekthara finished her testimony. The judges faced an impossible decision about humanity's place in the galaxy.